Person code. And I can choose one or more. See, all of our case inputs are 7,000s. Yeah, so if you want, you could just say, I want to look at all of Amanda's. And then you could create and save that view and say Amanda. And then you could come down and select your next one. And say, this one would be. And you do have to hit that save as so you don't override the one that you're on, but this one was a Brandy. Okay, so you could do it that way. If you wanted to look at it by salesperson, I would recommend saving those views using that little save button to create your version of it. But if you want to look at all of your salespeople at once, we can do multiples. So I could say I want 7,002. I can use my vertical bar, which is my OR. And then I say 7001, which is Amanda. Another vertical bar. And then I could do 7004. Right, so I could build my list, and this may be something you guys set up. If you have to set up one time, and then it's all of my salespeople in one list that I can then save 7008. Great. So now my little string right there has all of them. I could then save this as that's. I get all of my salespeople. Is it all one for one? You have kind of one, or do you split between salespeople? Meaning, does one, each of you only has a salesperson only applies to one of you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't share.
You don't share a salesperson.
Yeah.
That's.
No, I would say no, because of the ones that Michelle does right now. She's doing all the Vericore ones, so she could be doing, because she does all the Vericore billing, so she might do some of the other members' accounts as well, right, Michelle?
Yes.
So, but that might change too, so, I mean, we'll just go with this for right now.
TBD. Okay. All right. So, and that also applies on the customer out of job cards, which you probably don't have to look at, but they will have that salesperson code on them if you need to go and reference that as well.
So what do you do when you're on vacation? Do you have somebody that backs you up?
Yeah, yes, they're all cross-trained, so they could cover for each other if something
Somebody
need to be
found.
invoiced, yeah.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah, we have to cover, yeah. So we all know, we used to like rotate accounts, that way we become familiar with all the accounts. And we do have like special, like some accounts have like special billing instructions, so we do have a spreadsheet on SharePoint with that, so if you ever need to bill somebody else's account, it's all there.
Great. So I guess the other part of this, if we're filtering to just a salesperson code, this is going to be all open sales orders, not necessarily what's ready to build. The other step would be to add that filter and say where ship equals yes, where invoice equals no. And that's really your ready to bill orders. Like I said, we can set this up one time for each of you once we have it kind of set up, and then it'll be ready to go for everything else. That's basically the same as this shipped not invoiced, which kind of comes by default from VC. And then it just doesn't have the salesperson filters. So yeah, when we get you guys in and have that, we can set those up. Philip's an expert at filters in VC, can help you with that. All right, so that was kind of my first question. I wanted to take a step back just a little bit to kind of review. There's really, I'm going to say there's 5 different ways you're going to be invoicing. And I'll walk through an example of each one, but they're all very similar. So as we walk through these trainings, we may have seen them multiple times. I just wanted to like give kind of an overview. Okay, so there's really the 5 ways. That might change, but for now, kind of the base version. So I should have my notes here. So sales invoices for fees. So if it's a non-inventory item where we have no transaction, it's just a straight up service fee. We talked about,
charge.
what's that?
Like bin charges.
Yes, warehouse charges. Okay, so that process. Pretty straightforward. I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna go to my sales invoices. So this is a sales invoice with no inventory. I'm gonna go ahead and open one that's already in there. But basically, I fill out my header information. And it's going to be triggered from whatever the warehouse sends the list, right, of the charges for the month. And we add our lines. Actually, I'm not going to use this one because it's not a great example. So my starting point for that is a sales invoice. I just need to set my customer. Fill out the rest of my header information. I'm just going to use the default for this time. I would need to set my dates or salesperson or whatever else. And then all I have to do is find my line. We created yesterday a bunch of line items that will be used for these charges. We can get you that list once we kind of have it identified, but especially for the Vericore stuff, it's gonna have the price already in there. All we have to do is say, yep, it's one bin charge and it's set and ready to go. So let's go.
So do you know on the service items, is that, how would we know when to bill that? I guess to create the invoice, because I was under the impression that the CSR would enter in all the orders, including the service items. Is that not correct?
I think they probably should be,
Okay.
right? I mean, because otherwise it's a bit of a mystery, right? That shouldn't rely on accounting to,
Okay.
So.
Because they pull the warehouse report, and so they know. I don't know if they're gonna be pulling out of Vericore or where they're getting this report for right now until, or is it gonna be in BC?
It'll be in
Is that-
BC.
Okay, so they're
Like,
supposed to, and then create,
Us for those things,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
yeah, but if you're saying if they don't need to create an order, they can't actually invoice. So can they create an order for service items or?
Yeah, they can.
Because wouldn't that be part of the monthly, pardon me, monthly order they're supposed to do for client?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's- So if they're creating it, but we don't want them posting it, right?
Correct.
So they'll create it and then it'll sit in open status, ready for this group to post it. Okay. So. Yeah, then it would show up as a sales order, yeah, for those individual lines. Okay. So it'll look like our other ones. Do you ever bill other customer charges that don't come from the PMs? Not really, right?
No.
Anything would trigger from them?
But some of those fees, like those contract fees you had, Michelle.
Oh, that's
like
true.
the Percentage stuff.
In that paperwork I gave you, there will probably be BAS 1%. Then I basically take the product.
Yeah.
Times it by 1%. Back that out of the product, code the product accordingly, and then code the 1%. Sales and stuff.
Yeah, but they have a copy of the terms and conditions, so they would be adding all that in there.
That would still reside with the PM then?
Per monthly order,
What was that?
it's gonna have to be per monthly order and per line item, because not every item is BAS. Or not every item would have 7% rate or.
Yeah, well, they have a copy of the terms and conditions for each client, so they would know what that is, and they would have to enter that in there on the order itself.
And that might be some education on our side, because I think they've been pretty reliant on accounting to do that, correct?
Yeah.
So I think we will need to put the responsibility back in the hands of the PMs.
I don't know, like Steve
Yeah, that
or
needs-
I think, okay, go ahead.
What I was gonna say is that, yeah, all of that needs to go into it. That needs to go into orders, which would be, you know, PM, CSRs, whatever you call them. They need to make sure that that stuff's getting in, or those orders have the ability to get created automatically. We do that today for all of our storage orders. So instead of sitting there and asking our CSRs to bang through 350 storage orders, we actually import it all off of a spreadsheet and it creates them all for us. But we
Yeah.
definitely need an order in the system.
Yeah,
The only time that we do invoice corrections for the most time that we only do invoice, that we do would normally be in like in a credit rebill situation, but anything else that's going on that we're going to charge the customer for, whether we're charging them for it or it's just a cost to go against the account, is done as an order within.
Okay. Yeah, and for the automatic stuff, I think I mentioned yesterday on the call, we're working on that. It probably won't happen in the next couple of weeks, but for sure when the Smart Source team's on, but probably well before that, we'll have that for you guys where we can take those big long warehouse fee list and import it and assign it to the customer, so you don't have to manually come in and put those. Okay, all right, so then it sounds like this is a scenario we probably don't have that often, if at all. And
I can see that being used for postage and upfront postage and sales tax.
Oh, I heard they don't need all by
So we wouldn't need to do those.
Jill, Michelle mentioned about the posted invoice. Do we still have a posted invoice when we using the new system? Busy?
Yeah, I think they would have to create an order and then we would invoice it. Cause right now what we do is for postage, when we request postage from our clients is sales will send us like a mock invoice and then we'll create a real one in Logic to bill their customer now. So I would think that they would just create an order and we would create an invoice, right?
there, okay, yep.
Like a portion.
All right, so we're not gonna worry about sales invoices because we're not gonna do just a standalone invoice without a order. So then that moves to our next scenario, which is the majority of what you're gonna see, which is sales orders shipped, not invoiced. Meaning the warehouse has done their part, PM has done their part. Everything is ready to be billed on this list. Okay, so we'll just grab one of these older ones. Actually, if I do that, it's not gonna work because it's too old. So let's grab this guy. Okay, so I'm gonna open it up. It's gonna show up in my list because it's filtered by salesperson and by shipped, not invoiced. All I need to do is review, make sure my dates are correct. This was from today. My due date for when I expect the customer to pay is based on their terms, so it's 10/12, so everything looks good there. This one all looks great. I'm just gonna scroll over here and say, yep, I've got, it's $100 gift card charge, 25 of them shipped. I'm ready to invoice. I'm ready. I come to my post and invoice. If there's service charges, that could be 100 lines, there could be one line. Basically, the process is the same. I review it, I check my dates, check my terms. So when I'm all done, I come in and post my invoice. Hopefully that is the majority of your process, is just second set of eyes, review it and post it. I now get my posted sales invoice. If I'm emailing this to the customer, I can then do it straight from here. If it's going on a summarized invoice, I'm done. I can just back out and it'll get captured when we do the summarized invoice later. So that's the majority of your flow, is going to be finding the sales order, checking it, posting it, emailing if applicable.
So I have a question on the, like the web orders or the releases. So some of them are done weekly, some of them are done monthly. So they're like a summary bill. So are you saying that, so we create separate invoices for each release? Or I guess the CSR they would create a separate sales order for each release? Cause there is a lot. I would say that seems like a lot of work. And then we would invoice it. And then at the end of the week or end of the month, whatever their terms are, then we just create a summary bill invoice for all those releases for that period.
Yep.
So,
I'm-
so orders that come in over the web will all create an individual order in Business Central. So,
Automatically or,
yes,
okay.
yeah, so like if you're using Propago or Bright Stores, you know, the customer's on there ordering product, they're doing whatever they're doing, or if a CSR is having to manually enter something because you know they got a phone call. Every one of those, but let's just talk about the web orders. Every web order that comes in will create a separate order in Business Central because it's going to go it's going to go to the warehouse with a order number. Okay.
Okay.
And then what's going to happen is that, you know, the warehouse is going to ship it. They're going to send us back the shipping information. They're going to send us back the tracking information. And then that stuff's going to get invoiced. Smart Source has customers that do 2,500 to 4,000 orders a month coming out of inventory.
Yeah.
What
So-
about credit orders that are already paid for? We're invoicing those as well?
Yes.
I'm sorry, you cut out.
Oh, I said, well, what about a lot of the stores, we use
Uh-huh.
cards where they pay with coupons, but those, you know, to the, for the user, they've already, you know, the essentially the order confirmation, I think, is their invoice. So would we be sending these secondary invoices for all those transactions, or do they get grouped in a summary bill to the client?
So on the warehouse, on the web store ones, they're gonna get their invoice when they pay,
Correct.
right?
On the storefront.
Yep, so we will mark those as not to be invoiced
Okay.
individually. The
Well, we would
payment-
still have to record the revenue, recognize the revenue in,
Yes.
Yeah, so there will be a
NBC
sales.
though.
invoice. It will post an invoice just like this. So that's why I wanted to focus on this process. This applies to like thousands of scenarios. A web order comes
but
in.
but
is
would it
post-
be kind of like a charge and then a credit for, cause a lot of them pay by credit card or like with coupons, so then it would have a credit on the invoice for, you know, it would bill for 100 and credit for 100. So basically it would be a zero invoice. But
Yep.
we do need to record it in BC to recognize the revenue. Otherwise, you know,
Yep, so we
Right.
have a process in place that Todd is working on right now. I believe it's almost ready, where what he does is creates what's called a cash receipt, which says I got paid for this invoice. When that order comes through, it's tied to that cash receipt and it posts both the invoice and the cash receipt and nets to zero all at one time. And you don't have to do anything for that. And it will say it was paid via web credit card, so that when your deposit comes in from that bank, it matches all of the accumulated web orders that were for that batch. So you guys don't have to do anything with that. It's gonna come in from the web with that cash receipt.
But a month at Vericore billing, for instance, non-web, it'll be more of a spreadsheet that someone uploads.
Yeah, we're gonna have to work through what that looks like and that's for Vericore shipments that they've posted. So those are gonna come in as they ship them. There's no batching of Vericore. It's one to one. As soon as they post the shipment, it posts the,
Okay, because the sale, I'm talking this through in
Yep.
my head, because the salesperson's gonna be placing that order. Ship.
so, yep, they're gonna place the release basically.
Right.
Yep.
Right. In this case, it'll be a sales order.
Exactly.
Okay,
And it will look exactly like all of these other ones. It will be a sales order with a quantity that has been shipped, but not invoiced.
now within that sales order, is that where they're gonna define, okay, I need 1% BAS for this item? I need 7% freight for this item.
Yes, whatever the warehouse fee is, it will come through on that sales order as a line charge. Jill, going back to your question, we did a distribution where we had like 60 something individual shipments, right? So we're bringing in 1,000 of these and then 60 of them are going to individual addresses. That will be 60 individual sales orders. And it will be, that's what the Dendrian one, right? We looked at that.
Yes,
This is one of the remainders from that we actually shipped. You would have 60 individual sales orders from Dendrian. The nice thing is I can batch post these. So let's say I come in and I want to filter to all my Dendrian ones. I come in here and type Dendrian, search it. It now has all of my Dendrian orders for the day. I can then, and I don't have enough in this scenario, so I'm going to pretend I hit select more, select all those lines. Again, if this was all the Dendrian ones, and then I just go ahead and post. Now, first couple times we do it, let's review 3 or 4 of them, make sure we're not messing stuff up before we post them all. But once we're confident that it's working and the information's flowing in correctly,
how big
Batch
is
post
the difference between a one-off order that is not billed on a monthly summary billing for warehousing? How do you know the difference between those?
yeah, so we're gonna have a flag basically of whether it's summarized or not. And it'll sit on the sales order. So in my mind, the way you do that is I would have a batch of anything that's summarized, meaning I don't have to do anything with it once I post. Post them all, you're done. You walk away. It'll get taken care of when the summary bill is sent. Anything that's not summarized, go through, probably post them. You can post them in a batch, but then you would need to go in and start mailing or emailing those to the individual for each individual invoice. Yeah, so there will be a flag in here where we can filter. We just don't have that yet, but it will before we go live. The nice thing is the process is, like I said, 1,000 different scenarios. Your process is almost exactly the same, with the exception probably of that summary versus individually emailed invoice.
So for the summary billing at the end of the month, just just go in, go, okay, done?
So it'll be
The whole thing?
it'll be a screen in here where we go and on the customer, say run summary bill or create summary bill, and it will then populate a PDF that has all of the individual details for that customer.
Like based on a date range?
Yeah.
And that's still in development? right?
Yes,
Okay.
we weren't sure if we were gonna have it in time with our initial date of whatever, a week ago. But since we're giving some more time for training, we probably can get that done before we
Good,
go live. I know it's important.
those are big.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
making sense?
Once you get in with your users, go ahead and review this list. Go in and post some invoices. Right now, I only have 3 because I have not been doing a lot of shipping. Once we get our warehouse set up done, we'll have lots more of those orders coming through that we'll have.
Can we
for you
sort
guys
of
to-
take ship any other orders so they have more to play with?
Yeah, I'll work on that.
Okay, thank you.
So any questions on kind of our generic sales order invoicing process? The goal is PMs, everyone else does, warehouse does all their work before it hits your desk. Your job is pretty straightforward.
Can I add something, guys? Matt, do you want to maybe just go into, just open up an order and just show them the stats page?
Yes.
So the concept is obviously the easiest way, and this is, let me explain to you how life is now So if you scroll down a little bit, just show them the, you know, the box. You see right there where it says total excluding tax USD, and then the 00 at the bottom of the screen. So this is again a new way that BC, that Microsoft is kind of showing you like a total of the invoice. Now, that said, it's as an accountant, it's the total, but it's not what you are about to invoice, if you understand what I'm saying. So if Matt, if you scroll over to quantity to invoice, I just want to show you there are fields. Might have to reopen. So assume this is a ready to go invoice, right? I'm trying to give you guys a little bit of back end of what happens on screen, right? So it's $300 each for each line. So whatever number is in the quantity to invoice column is going to work with preview posting. So Matt, you can maybe just show them home, post, preview posting, or stats, right? So preview posting is like, it's like a bot, right? It kind of shows you the journal entry you are about to make to the books without actually doing the journal entry. We talked about this a few times. It's cool. I like it. It's a new friend that's new, and a lot of accountants like this. The old way of doing preview posting was you had to go to stats, right? Because really what you put on the line doesn't matter. What's in the quantity to invoice is what you are about to debit and credit. And that is this tab. So it could be like $1 million order, or it could be a $10,000 order. But based on what I've done to the line, I'm only invoicing $900. That's what Matt was just showing. Right? You could be partially invoicing or doing whatever situation. So if it's a $300 order, I'm only touching the first line, and I as a user do not wish to do any AR billing revenue recognition to line 2 and line 3, right? So if you look at the stats,
So
it'll
my
now
subs-
say $100,
right, the
$300.
$9. But I'm only doing the first line, so my statistics window is for what I am about to invoice. So that's this invoicing section of the $300. So that's how you account for kind of a partial bill if you're only doing part of the order, not the
Yep.
whole thing.
Okay, and then Matt, just stay on this page for 1 sec. Scroll down. So you see where it says number of tax lines 1? That is where, I mean, Mary and a bunch of folks have helped, and Jill's been on the calls, but we've kind of set up the Avalara and the taxes, but obviously that needs to be tested. But in the case, let's say this was a taxable $300 sale, right? From the $900 invoice. Let's say it was a Texas sale and it was 10% tax. And let's say for whatever reason you wanted to change the tax from $30 to $29.95. You wanted to go 5 cents lower on the tax, or there's some kind of adjustment you want to make to the $30 the system is calculating tax. This is the only spot in BC that you can actually adjust the tax. Again, when you go through testing, we can put in a scenario where you have to adjust the tax, but I would say 99% of clients don't touch the tax. Once the system calculates $300 USD, 10% is the tax rate, $30 is the tax, you kind of don't need to worry about it, right? But there is, where it says tax amount, that is the only editable field. So you would change 30.00 to $29.90 if you wanted to. And then the receivable would be $329.95, right? So there's a lot of bookkeeping, and remember, everything in BC is live. So when you hit post an invoice, it's doing the subledger entries, it's making the receivable customer ledger entries, and it's doing debit and credit in the GL all at the same time. This is not a delayed system or a batch system or something like that.
So yeah, that statistics button, very helpful to just verify, especially, you guys do purchase side too, right? Vendor invoices? Especially on the vendor side, where you have to make sure that you're matching exactly the amount that the vendor sent you. Because if it's a partial PO where they've only shipped part of what we ordered, this subtotal down below is for the order, not for the invoice. So let's go ahead and look at a purchase side, because that to me is where it's a lot more relevant. This is great for tax. Hopefully our taxes are calculated correctly. We don't have to mess with it. That's the idea. We don't have you guys messing with those. So on the sales side, it should flow really without a lot of touching, but let's look at the purchase order side, because that's where
Yeah.
this.
Matt, can you just hold on that page for one more second, if you don't mind? I don't know how you want to kind of talk about this, but we spoke with this group before where most of your sales orders at this stage, when you're invoicing, they're kind of on account sales, right? You're not going to be storing customer credit cards and kind of you're not swiping somebody a customer's credit card at this stage. You're kind of selling it, invoicing it, and then the customer is going to pay within a day, within a week, whatever kind of thing, like on their own. Am I correct on that statement?
Yes.
Yes.
And like how somebody was asking about 10 minutes ago, if it's a web sale, the web order and the web payment has already occurred. Like it could have happened at 2 a.m. this morning. And now we see the order, right? So as part of the software, as part of the ePay enhancement, there is an opportunity for you to take a payment at the time of invoicing that Matt and I are talking about. But if it doesn't apply to you guys as K-Smith, and let's say even Smart Source Corporate doesn't want to do that ever in the future, then you don't need to use that option. But we're just telling you that there is an option for you to kind of debit AR, credit revenue, and do the payment within a few clicks at this stage. But like you guys just confirmed, you will never really be talking about money. You're really creating the receivable, and hopefully the customer pays within hours, days. And that part of AR and collections we can talk about on a separate meeting. Sorry, Matt, go ahead. So with the PL side.
Good. It's a great.
I had a quick question about those, the paid on web ones. So we have a system in place that if a customer does pay on a website, that when that order comes into our system, it comes and changes the customer's account AR terms from like net 30 to PW, which is paid on website. So that also is one of the things that kind of our billers work through as far as doing things maybe like not necessarily in batches, but as we work through an order, we look to see the AR terms to determine how we proceed with the billing, even if it is on a summary bill. So is that something that we're going to be setting up? So if there's something paid on website, the AR terms, when the order comes in, it's going to change to PW, or is every account going to stay consistent with the contract terms of like net 30, so to speak?
Yeah, so if it comes in with that credit card payment already made, we will update this payment method code. This one by default for this customer is ACH. That order would have, I don't think we have, is it W? Yeah, we'll assign one that basically says that same thing, where it says, yeah, this has been paid on the website. We don't have to bill it to the customer. And all of the actual back-end accounting of that, it will already have been done.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll work with Matt, you, me, and Todd can work on. There is a base BC feature where I can say, if there's a situation like that, fake receive the money too, right? You know what I mean? But maybe we don't want to do that or turn that on, because you are actually going to get the money from the website payment processor 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, let's say Friday morning, right? You don't know, like usually think monies get batched up and received the following day or the following business day or something like that, right? So are we I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait for that money to come in through the website and the bank. And that receipt of money, like there could be, you could receive money for 700 web orders from yesterday or the week before, right? All in one shot. So how that deposit gets applied will then close off order 76 for Dendron for $300, right? So either it'll be a timing difference till the day you get the deposit. Let's say you get the deposits on Monday mornings and Wednesday mornings, right? I don't know how your banking is going to be at the moment. So either we delay it like that, and that's something typical that Matt and I have set up for other clients, or you do have an option of all web orders if they come and they get updated. And I forgot what you said, like I think it was like ATW or something, like whatever you said, it was already paid. We can, for the purposes of BC, we can say receivable created, receivable dead, receivable created, receivable closed, right? But then when you get the money the next morning, how are you going to apply it? So that's why it's kind of backwards for this process. But Matt, maybe me or maybe Rachel, we can write that down and we'll check that with Todd on when orders come in marked as paid, we need to update that, and then we'll wait for the money part. So the accounting team will have a discussion next week around receipt of monies from various sources. That could be one of the topics we can talk about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, good question though.
All right, let's go to the purchasing side. So just like on the sales order, the format's fairly similar. We also will have a received, not invoiced. On this side, when you get an invoice from a vendor, how do you split who does? Yeah, you do everything.
She does everything from print side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brandon merch. Caitlin does.
Okay, yep, okay, great. So that's even easier. All right, so your received, not invoiced is your filter of stuff where the warehouse has said they received it. We got an invoice. Most likely your invoice is going to reference a PO number. So you could then come in and find, oh, yep, this was PO number 0081. Great. Oh, that's a bad example. Customer supply vendor. Let's do 83. WCP, right? So you get that invoice, you come in. This will tell you what was received. So here it's one item. The quantity, the order quantity is my first column, 3,500. My received quantity was all 3,500, so the warehouse got it all. So I'm ready to invoice my 3,500. In this case, it should match my subtotal down here because it's the full order. But if I wanted to verify, I come again up to my statistics button. And then on the invoicing, it would say, yep, amount to invoice is 455. All I need to do, I got a big red asterisk that's saying this is required. Before I post this, I have to put in their invoice number. That has to be unique to the vendor. So if it's the same number as a prior invoice, so let's say their system isn't very good and they send 2 shipments with the same invoice number.
Okay.
The system will yell at you and say, you can't use that invoice number. If that happens, just do -2 or something. Right? It's just something to let the system work past it. But basically that invoice number has to be unique to that vendor. It can be whatever format they use. That's a free field that you're allowed to kind of just type whatever they need. Okay. Again, I'm going to check my dates, my terms, everything looks good. Yep, I placed the order on the 11th. It was posted on the 11th. I'm good to go ahead and move forward. If I need to change any of those dates, I can.
We're gonna want the document tape to get the invoice.
Because that's what's going to calculate on the terms.
Yep.
Yeah, so whenever they say that invoice, when they invoice us, that's what we put in that document date. If everything looks good, I'm good with my payment terms, got 2%, 10, net 30. I don't have to worry about that when I actually make the payments. All I need to do is just match my invoice here. And then same process, I'll post. And in this case, I'm just going to invoice it. So what that's gonna do, it's gonna go through and process all my lines, all my amounts. It's gonna create an invoice that I now have to pay my vendor.
So how does it know how to code it
As far as,
to like the general ledger codes?
it's all based on the setup that's done on the vendor. So if everything's done correctly and on the vendor and on the PO, it does all the work in the background. Yeah, so now I have my posted purchase invoice. This is my record of this amount that I have to pay my vendor for these items. One thing we talked about earlier, the PMs were asking, how do I get my vendor invoices? Because they want to know that information. Once you post your invoice, you have this attachments over here. So you can drag in and drop into this folder here if you just have any sort of see if I have a good. Great, I don't even know what that is. I can just drag it right into that space. It's got it hidden behind my screen.
Is there a way to make that required, just so that people know to put that on there, or?
Not right now.
This from I would imagine that might be something people could forget to do.
Yes.
You mean as far as the
Uploading in the doc.
the person who is purchasing it,
Yeah,
uploading the receipts, purchase orders.
So they could do any of that, but basically from your side, you just want to take whatever that invoice is and drop it in there.
Right.
On the PM side, if they put in a purchase, any sort of information, they definitely should. But there's not a way to like force it, unfortunately.
yeah, so it's more of a training.
It's just training to remember to drop it in there. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. You can even drag an email. So if you have like the PDF in an email, just click that PDF and drag it over into your,
Yeah.
this little space and it'll attach it right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what pretty much what I'm doing right now. I mean, every invoice from an email or how it gets sent to me gets attached into the document, but like right now,
That's,
like I'll get an email that has an invoice and then I send it to whoever's department to approve it or attach purchase orders and stuff. So that part's gonna be gone.
Yes, because we should be able to open it up and say, it's been received, they got it, that's our approval.
Excellent. Okay.
If it's not been received, you can't invoice it.
Right.
So that's where you reach out to someone and say, yeah, what's happening here?
We got this, you haven't received it, why not?
Well, wouldn't the ones that Jennifer does work a little bit different because she's not paying vendors on order related. It's just operational expense, like expense, so it's not related to an order.
She's doing
So,
it side. So
What
we
was
do
that?
have it. She is doing it for the print side. So we do have some for orders.
okay, but now that's gonna be all divided up amongst the, I guess 5 invoicers, and so they're gonna be, because they enter in all the ones that are in SmartBooks, so once it all goes to BC, they're gonna be entering them all in. I would think, I don't see why Jennifer would enter in the print ones and, because how would you separate the two? Because they're all gonna be in one system. So, right?
would
That's
be
something
separated by the
Because,
sales
I
order
mean,
that it's attached to.
Sorry. What was
The
that?
vendor invoice is gonna be based upon the sales order that it's attached to or for.
Yeah. So whoever is
And
billing
when-
that order is gonna pay the vendor, not, you know what I mean? Cause right now I think Jonah, she's processing the print, I guess, print orders and sending them over to Jennifer to pay. But I would think once it's in BC that it would be, the invoicing team that would do that. For all the orders, whether they're brand merch or print. And
They
then
would do what?
Jennifer would pay the vendor or enter in the vendor invoice for the orders.
Yeah,
It would
she's
be
gonna
the
pay it
invoice.
Jennifer's just gonna look at the invoice and make sure it's been received and then post the invoice.
Yeah, but am I confused? I thought we were supposed to verify that with the order when we pay it. Am I? When we get ready to invoice, wouldn't we do
That's
that, or
the-
is there another part that I'm missing?
Do you guys verify orders against vendor invoices?
Well, you do that, Philip, right now, like in Smart Books, you know how you're entering in the payables for Craig Seaman, and then you're verifying that the cost is allocated to that order. That's something that they do when they invoice it, so I think Jennifer's role is gonna kind of change. I think the only ones that she's probably gonna enter in Dynamics is operating expense, not order related.
The order related ones would normally be done by the accounting team.
Yeah, which is.
By one of the, and I think I heard you say the number 5, like one of the 5 billers is going to be the one to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry, all five, we have 5 billers, so they do it based on the sales rep. So right now, the way it
Right.
works is Sarah McBride, which she gets the vendor invoices from the vendors, and then we have these folders for each sales rep, and then she puts them in the folders, and then so we know to whoever's assigned to that account will go into that folder and enter it in payables.
That process is going to 100% change when we
Okay,
go to when we put in the document management stuff, which I don't believe will be initially ready when you guys go live, but that process will totally change. What we have is all AP invoices, whether they're operating expenses or whether they are, job related, they all go to an AP inbox, and then the document management software picks it up, looks to match it to an order, and then connects it automatically to that order. We used to do the kind of the same thing, but we automated it so that we're getting hundreds of vendor invoices a day, and we're not having to sit there and have a person sit there and attach them. We actually use technology to make all of that work. Then we just handle the exceptions. So then what would happen is that for sales order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if the vendor sends a vendor invoice in for it that's attached to that order number, it's just going to attach it to the order. And when we put in, what is it, Continia? Is that the name of it?
Yep.
Yeah. That's gonna help streamline all of that.
So
okay.
until it happens, which won't be in the next couple of weeks, it'll be in a couple of months. We will
And so
need,
what would we do until then, I guess?
I mean, someone needs to type in that invoice number and post it.
But who's gonna? Like, how when you opened up the purchase orders, the ones that are ready, so
Mhm.
is there a customer number? Can you look at that? Like when you were looking in the purchase order, like, how would you know? We just have to designate one person to enter all those then? Because how would you separate those by who bills what? Because you can't tell which customer these are for.
Correct. My understanding would be that the PO number on the invoice is what designates which one it goes to. So you get an email from a vendor with an invoice and it says, yep, this is PO 6156. Here's the invoice.
But we don't know what customer we're gonna bill for.
Yeah.
That's
But
all
it's
that.
attached- But it's all attached to the order.
If we look at this, can we tell what customer we're gonna bill from here?
So. Yes, my variant code tells me my customer number right there. That's a customer number 8800550. But if the order and everything's been set up correctly, that's already been built on the sales side. So in this case, this is an Excel order for a statement charge, right? This is a critical communications order that came through. We placed the order to Excella and said, hey, do this. Excella came back and said, yep, here's what I did. Whoever is the PM, Katie or Rochelle put in that sales order to bill the customer, and they already posted that as a shipped, ready to invoice on the sales side. So that part's all done. And whoever is responsible for critical communications for that customer would have posted that sales invoice to the customer. Now Excella, a week later, says, hey, I printed 500 statements for this customer. Here's your bill, plus my service charges, plus whatever else. That invoice is what comes in on the purchase side and says, oh, yep, I need to go ahead and pay Excella for my statement charges. This one didn't get finished all the way, so I'll push the wrong button. Reopen, because the amount is 0. Someone's doing a bad job on their order entry. Let's say it's a $2 charge. Great. So now Excel says, yep, you owe me $2 for each one of these statements. There were 500 in this batch for this customer. Here's my invoice. So you say, great, I got an invoice from Excella. It tells me it was PO 6156. I'm going to post my $1,000 invoice because Excella needs to get paid. Again, they're a vendor now, right? We're just going to treat them like any other vendor. And post my invoice number. Okay. So, especially on this type of scenario where it's Excella or someone else that's handling it after the fact, the invoicing on the customer side has already been done. And that's what triggers this PO to be created and ready to go. It's very different. The flow is kind of reversed, but we're billing the customer first based on what Excella said they printed. Same thing would go on a release. Excella says, yep, I released all of these. Or a drop ship. It's coming straight from a vendor, going to the customer. We'll talk through but the PM basically is going to say, yep, we shipped 500 of these. Here's my billable to the customer. That's already ready to go in our sales order list on the PO side. All we have to do is take that vendor invoice and apply it. So, good.
Okay, so then how will this affect things that don't have purchase orders, like operating, like utilities and
Yep.
trying to think.
Rent and.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff.
Sorry, right, that's just so that we get it through. Okay, so, that's got payment terms there. I'll worry about that. We'll come back to them. Okay, so we have a purchase invoice for those non-operational, but more like just charges, right? Yeah, so then an invoice comes in from rent, utilities, whatever it may be. All you have to do is create your purchase invoice, create a new one, say, yep, I'm Kay Smith. All I have to fill out is
Okay, so basically the same process.
Yep.
And would you set up a template for that, like a template for each one?
Sure.
Would that make sense?
You can even copy document. If you've got an existing
Okay.
one, you could go and grab
I
the old
mean,
one.
yeah, there are some that are the same.
The exact same thing.
Right.
So generally what I say is put in the vendor first. So if it is a power company or whatever, fill that in and then go copy document and find last month's. They'll copy in the lines. It'll tell you what type of item or GL account to hit and stuff. Are you doing that in BC right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would be the exact same. Yeah. Those ones are easy, right? Because it's just a straight charge to the
Right.
customer. Or not the vendor. Flip back and forth, keep track of it.
We're getting close to time.
Yep.
Are there other questions? I know Matt's gotta head to the airport soon, right?
Yeah. The one we haven't walked through is drop ships. And I'm happy to walk through in a couple of minutes an example of that. but I want to know what the business process is for how those, kind of what's the trigger? Right, so a PM fills out their sheet, they say, yep, it's gonna ship straight from the vendor to the customer. Maybe it's going to a decorator or whatever else, but ultimately it ends up at the customer. We never get anything from the warehouse because it's not going there. How do we know when to bill that? Assuming that a vendor sends an invoice, that's kind of the first step of their side. Just
Well, for smart books, they use smart sheets. So when everything's been reconciled and it's ready to bill, the CSR will mark it ready to bill, and it triggers us to go in there and verify the order to make sure that everything's been shipped and that the costs, everything matches, and then we invoice it. That's why we were wondering, like, if we could have another status, but you said it's either opened or released. Yeah.
Yeah, and for
So-
Smart Source, all we do is we bill straight from the vendor invoice. As soon as we got the vendor invoice in, we bill it. There's no waiting.
So you never give the PMs, so they know that the order should be perfect, because what
Yes,
if
it's-
something changes? Like, what if the quote, because originally when they probably entered it, it was probably based on the quote from the vendor, and what if the freight comes in higher, or do you just go in and change it, or do you have to let them know?
No, so it goes kind of back to what Steve was saying. When we get vendor invoices in, they come into the APM box and they'll either automatically get imported to the order that they match to, and it's on the PM or the CSR to review their vendor invoices as they come in. That is the dashboard that they're supposed to be working from. And so as long as they're working from them, they're reviewing the invoices live as we are as well. So at that
Okay.
point, they should be putting notes on their orders. Hey, don't process this. There's an issue with the order. There's quality. So I think it wasn't yesterday, but the last week when they showed us orders and the notes on the side, that's what we will rely on as far as a biller or a CSR or a PM telling us not to bill. If they haven't put any type of notes on there saying not to bill it, then we bill it based off of what the vendor has shipped and billed us for. That's why freight markups are important based off of order setup or even account setup, because we're not reviewing a lot of stuff with the CSRs or the PMs. Like, everything should be pretty flawless as they set up their orders. Stuff should be coming in even as we bill overs. Like, for example, if a vendor bills us or ships overs, like a quantity of 50 over, we bill that over to our customer unless the contract says we can't bill for overs. And that's on the CSR or the PM to note that order. Hey, do not bill them overs. Even though they shipped us overs, we can't bill the customer overs. And then that would be something we modify at the time of billing.
So how much time do you allow for them to update, like, any notes? Because like right now, our CSRs, supposedly they don't review the invoices only on Fridays. So we usually give them a week or so before we can actually enter them in. Or we should, because they don't have time to look at it daily. So you're saying that your CSRs look at them daily, or I guess are required to?
Yes, they're required to look at them daily. I mean, Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but our CSRs are usually supposed to be reviewing their orders daily and working from their dashboard, so they should see the stuff coming in live as it's coming in.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
We
we-
we might need to change our workflow, because from me talking to Caitlin, they only review them on Fridays. So
Yeah, that,
if they even review them, then they usually don't review it. Some of them don't even review it until at the end of the month when they're ready to bill,
that's
whenever
crazy.
they get around to it. So it kind of,
Yeah, that needs to change.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. You got to go
Yeah.
faster.
Yeah, because I mean, we all know that we build 80% of everything in the last 3 days of the month. We all understand that that's what happens, okay? But we need to be billing all the way throughout the month as much as possible. And so, yeah, I mean, it is going to be a change in procedure there, that it's not a thing of, well, we do this on Friday. No, you guys got to do it every day. Like Kim said, they're trying to work through that, so that orders get done, get through, and get process so that we're taking care of our accounts payable, taking care of the discounts that we need, and then also that we're getting those orders invoiced to the customer, even if they're on summary bill, so that we're not trying to push 20,000 invoices in 3 days.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm happy. 'Cause that's one thing that we struggle with is trying to get them to review it. So
And is that on both sides, both print and brand merch?
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
Okay, and has it always been that way?
yes.
yes.
Yeah. It can be difficult, but holding people to a higher standard is
Yeah.
just kind of what's going to happen with this new system. So
Some CSRs are better than others, but but
They will get on board. We have 60 or 70 CSRs, and we all know it runs the gamut, but the ones who don't ever seem to get it out there, they eventually get to the point where they're doing what they need to be doing. It was a big change, for Smart Source years ago, from I get to my billing when I get around to it. It's like, no, that's not how it works. So, we changed the culture and we made it work, and it's ingrained in them now. So, they get it so that,
So let's plan on walking through a drop ship scenario on our next one. We do one next week where we talk through kind of, because it's a little bit, we have to do both sides kind of in the right order. But ultimately, the vendor invoice is our trigger point that says, yep, I shipped these products to your customer. That invoice is going to come in. Again, if the PMs have done their job and everything's set up correctly, it's post. We're done. We'll walk through it and talk through it. But I like the idea of they're not looking every day making notes. It's going to get posted. That's making less hand-holding on your guys' side, make them do their jobs up front.
Well, it looks like Matt's trying to pack up to get out of here, so we're gonna let him do that, so this flight. Thanks everyone for your time, much appreciated.
Yep.
Great,
thank you.
have a good
You'll have a
day.
good one. Thanks.
You too.
Bye.
guys.
That's why it takes us 3 weeks.
Yeah.